The show that you're about to see contains graphic real images of animals in life or death struggles. Viewer discretion is advised.
What you're about to see are some of the most graphic images of animal rescues ever caught on tape. It's heart-stopping, emotional, and in many cases, unbelievable. It's man and animal saving each other. Welcome to the third edition of the world's most incredible animal rescues.
Time appeared to be in the essence. They needed to get this animal out.
Normally, if you get a dog caught between two buildings, it's not 5 flights up.
Seemed to have been a distress when we came, so we thought if we could get him out nice and quick, had a good chance of survival.
Oh my God, he's a baby!
We're all God's creatures and we all deserve to live.
In rescuing an animal, if your job is not completed, their life in many circumstances may be over.
I could actually see the paws of the puppy. I was surprised that we found any of them alive.
He was quite a ways under the road. There was no way that you could reach up and grab him.
They've been in an accident, and they'll just run. That's just part of it, so they'll run till they get tired.
It was as if he didn't want to be rescued. I just felt that someone had to do something to save the dog.
Eventually it got to a point where the horse got so weak that it's pretty much now. We had to get him out now.
Let up, you're choking her! There you go, there you go! Come on, buddy! Come on, girl!
The response to our previous show was overwhelming. Tonight we have a brand new collection of heart-pounding footage of life and death rescues. As you know, it can be pretty tough watching helpless animals struggle to stay alive. But as always, we promise you an hour filled with happy endings. We begin with 2 stories about beloved family pets trapped in the worst situation imaginable, inside a burning building. A cold February morning in Mobile, Alabama. Police officer Donald Gomian heard a call on his patrol car radio of a burning trailer on the outskirts of town. What was thought to be an unoccupied trailer on fire was actually home to a dog named Kita and her 7 puppies.
I immediately noticed the dog come from around the trailer, this white collie about 2 foot tall, and just charged toward me and ran back to the other side of the trailer and then came back. She repeated this 2 or 3 times, and at that point I just followed her around the side of the trailer, and when I got around there is when I began to hear the cries of the puppies.
After pulling the first puppy out, Gomian noticed that Kita kept running back to the rear of the trailer. The officers decided they had to act fast if they were going to get the rest of the puppies out alive. The temperature was rising and the trailer had become a giant oven.
The fire was really going good then. I could actually see the paws of the puppies sticking out from underneath the trailer. I was surprised when we actually got in, tearing through the metal, that we found any of them alive.
There you go, get him out. Come on. I got there, push more.
2 more puppies were found, burnt, smoking, but still alive. In fact, one tiny white puppy had gotten so close to the flames, his skin was smoking. Three more puppies were found behind a broken television that temporarily served as a shelter from the blazing inferno.
We knew those dogs were in danger and we had to do something right then, and we just did it.
Scared, nervous, and singed by fire, the 6 puppies were finally out of harm's way. But suddenly, the firefighters were alerted to the fact that one more tiny puppy was still trapped. Finally, 45 minutes after the rescue began, all 7 burned and frightened puppies were reunited with their grateful mom. The joyous animal reunion warmed the hearts of everyone involved.
Poor little thing.
I thank them very much for saving the puppies.
It's all part of the job, I guess. It comes with it. People one day and animals the next. It don't matter. It's all part of the territory.
For another dog in St. Augustine, Florida, the last-minute arrival of one brave fireman made the difference between life and death.
We arrived at structure fire. We were told there was a dog and they didn't know if there was anyone inside. I went in the front door to search, see if there was anyone in there. Found the dog, brought him out.
No one was sure how long the dog had been inside the burning building, but for an animal as small as this Bichon Frise, even a short few minutes engulfed in smoke could snuff out this precious life. For Captain J.A. Williams, saving life, any life, is always priority number one. And at this moment, time was running out.
Started CPR on him. We got the tank of oxygen, put it down, and the dog soon after started gasping for breath and got a heartbeat back.
But he was not out of danger just yet. A call went out to a local vet who arrived and immediately determined that the pup needed to be hospitalized. Fortunately, the dog recovered, all thanks to the heroic efforts of one modest firefighter who was only doing his job. It's one thing to rescue an animal the size of a dog or a cat, but when the beast weighs close to a ton, the rescue operation becomes much more dangerous. Springtime at Chile Santiago Zoo and a couple of the younger elephants were feeling frisky. While playing around with a larger male suitor, a young female named Protea took a terrible tumble into a nearby moat. Unable to free herself, concerned zookeepers had no way of knowing the extent of the injuries to the 2,000-pound beast.
This looked like the animal landed straight up on its feet, but it could have certainly done a lot of damage down in the moat by trying to push itself up, bang itself into the side of the wall. Time appeared to be in the essence. They needed to get this animal out.
A crane was brought in to lift the huge beast. It was a delicate operation despite the extremely large size of the passenger. The heroic rescuers were able to get just the front straps of the harness in place, putting the elephant in a very precarious situation.
The animal could be injured. The cable could snap because of the movement of the animal. The straps could snap because of the movement of the animal.
The one-ton pachyderm was gently lowered to the ground. She was able to free herself from the straps. The operation was a success. And despite some cuts and bruises, the playful pachyderm was successfully reunited with her mate. We'll be back with more of the world's most incredible animal rescues. Don't go away.
Coming up, a dog fights for his life against sub-zero temperatures. Some very brave policemen are called into action. 4 stories above the ground. A family cat is trapped inside a deadly inferno. 2 dogs cling to life on the side of a rocky cliff.
Oh my God!
And a frightened horse struggles to stay alive against a rushing river. When we come back with more of the world's most incredible animal rescues.
A horse falls through a pier into a treacherous harbor. A cat is trapped on the roof of a burning building. Rescues like these always seem to bring out the best in people. 15 feet below the surface of a rotted wooden pier, a 7-year veteran of the Boston Police Department found himself trapped in 20 feet of water, his life in jeopardy. For more than 2 hours, rescuers worked feverishly to save the fallen animal. A hole was cut to widen the pier, but the weakened wood made it impossible to maneuver safely and bring up the horse. Instead, they decided to float the horse out from underneath and airlift it by way of a crane to the nearby harbor pier. However, the panicked horse began to struggle, endangering himself and his rescuers. Secured to the lift with 3-inch straps, the horse was slowly craned up and over the harbor. But horses tend to spook easily, and this frightened creature was clearly in shock as it hovered over the water. But finally, the horse was lowered to safety. In the end, members of the Boston Police and Fire Departments accomplished one truly heroic rescue, freeing a fallen comrade. A very different rescue was undertaken across the country atop a burning building in Los Angeles, California. A tabby cat had found herself trapped on the roof of a single-family 2-story home. As flames consumed the building, the anxious family members waited for news of their loved ones trapped inside. A brave fireman made his way to the first-floor roof. The frightened cat looked on as her rescuer approached. The fireman needed to get inside to search for human occupants, but he wasn't going to neglect the poor cat who was too frightened to move. Quickly, the fireman grabbed the animal under her chest and tossed her to safety, away from the intensity of the burning flames. Due to her own natural agility, the lucky cat was able to land and race away, all thanks to the brave act of one heroic fireman. In our tireless search to find the most incredible animal rescues, it never ceases to amaze us what lengths some people will go to save the life of a creature in trouble.
How far in is he?
Like really far.
Samson, what are you doing?
The trapped dog could only wag its tail in response. The 45-pound husky mix named Samson had apparently chased a rabbit into the pipe and became firmly wedged.
He's about 6 feet in there.
First, the neighborhood kids tried to entice Samson out by offering a hot dog to his rear end.
Oh, Sam.
To no avail.
He's so far down there. He's about 20 feet down there.
In trying to free himself, Samson got stuck further down the hole. The cameraman soon realized it was more important to try to save the animal than to videotape him, and so he began digging. But it was no use.
I see Samson. All right. It's half full of dirt all the way back to where he is. There's no way we can get that dirt out of there.
The neighbors decided to give up for the night and to call in the professionals. The next morning, the Grant County Highway Department arrived on the scene.
They'd called every police department, fire department that they could think of to try to get this dog out, and no one could figure out how to do it. Maybe we can snare him out, or try to flush him out, or shove him out with something.
But the highway crew came up with a better plan. First, they measured to see precisely where in the pipe the dog was located. Then they cut the asphalt and dug up the street to get to the pipe.
He was quite a ways under the road. There was no way that you could reach up and grab him.
A welder then took a blowtorch and began cutting into the steel pipe. It was a delicate operation to use the blowtorch so close to the trapped dog.
Anything could have happened. I suppose we could have burned him up, caught his hair on fire, or he could have died from smoke inhalation.
Finally, after several hours of hard work, rescuers reached into the hole to grab Samson. And he wasn't there.
We had the hole big enough to where I got my shoulder and head down in there where I could try to reach him, and he was just too far away.
Come on, Samson.
Because of the noise, he had somehow made himself even tighter. At that point, it was a mission to get that dog out of that pipe, so we measured again and cut it again. I asked the owner, does this dog bite? It's going to hurt him to get him out. And they said, no, he's never bit nobody. So I just went ahead and grabbed him by the collar. and just drug him out.
After being trapped for more than 18 hours, Samson was finally free. The husky was wet, tired, and hungry from the ordeal, but apparently uninjured.
Yeah, we thought he was a dead dog.
Yeah, I'd do it again if the situation arose. We're all God's creatures, and we all deserve to live. And if there's anything that you can do to save them, I think we ought to try.
There was no charge to Samson's owner for the expensive rescue, so both Samson and his owner left the scene quite relieved.
Bye, Samson, you stupid dog.
It was a bitterly cold January day at Canada's Trent University when a doe fell into serious trouble. Students called for help, and rescuers from the Peterborough Fire Department were immediately on the scene as the deer struggled to stay afloat in the icy slush of the Watanabe River.
It's about 15 feet deep there, so the deer clearly wouldn't be able to touch bottom. It likely would have lasted perhaps another hour.
As the concerned students looked on from the riverbank, the intrepid rescuers tried desperately to reach the freezing animal. But their small boat was having real difficulty breaking through the ice pack. Time was quickly running out.
So we realized that we had to take a fairly good run at the ice chunks to try and break them up, because they were indeed freezing together as well. We were concerned that it would struggle so much that it would slip below the ice. We got a rope around its head immediately so that we could at least stop it from submerging, and then we could get a hold of its legs and pull it into the boat.
Once the deer was on the boat, rescuers found they were themselves frozen in place. They had called for backup, but the deer needed immediate medical attention to survive. Thinking quickly, some of the students cut a hole in a softball, attached a rope, and threw a line out to the stranded rescuers.
We were very quickly and efficiently pulled to shore by the students, which was terrific. So it was a real community rescue.
Still ahead. A dog is trapped between two New York City buildings, 4 stories above the earth. A steep hill, a trapped horse, and a desperate struggle to bring the frightened animal to safety. A frightened dog plunges nearly 100 feet down the side of a mountain. And 3 dogs save the life of an infant buried alive.
Oh my God, he's a baby!
When we return with the world's most incredible animal rescues.
Up next, a steep hill, a trapped horse, and a desperate struggle to bring the frightened animal to safety. During a Sunday trail ride in beautiful Griffith Park in Los Angeles, Jay Lippman and his paint horse Phantom found themselves in a desperate situation.
Something frightened the horse. Back legs went over the embankment, and I threw the reins back over his head and watched him then proceed to roll down the embankment.
By the time a rescue squad arrived, Phantom had plunged nearly 300 feet from the top of the hill. It was still 600 feet to the bottom, and unless rescuers acted quickly, the disabled horse would tumble further towards his doom.
In this situation, the terrain was so rough and so rocky that there was no pathway available to us. The horse was extremely nervous. He would try and leap forward and run up the hill. Even though he was secured on the side of the cliff, he would lose his balance and flip over backwards and tumble down the hill.
In fact, one wrong step and the frightened creature could have fatally injured himself or even one of his rescuers.
There was talk of possibly cutting a trail to lead him out, which would have been impossible. The chainsaws would have scared the heck out of him. There was no way up and there was no way down, so the answer was helicopter.
The horse was injected with an anesthetic to calm him down for the perilous airborne journey.
They couldn't go straight up because the hillside was at such an angle that if it went straight up, his head would smash right into the hillside.
In rescuing an animal, you have the feeling that they are pretty much at your mercy. If your job is not completed, then their life in many circumstances may be over.
At last, Phantom was placed safely on the ground, but the danger wasn't over yet.
He's doing good. His temperature is 99, taking deep breaths. And they've got the harness off of him. He's starting to wake up now.
At times when horses recover from general anesthesia, there is a risk that they can take an awkward step and injure themselves and even have the potential for fracturing one of their limbs.
Finally, the poor horse was able to get himself upright without any further injury.
Phantom is, I guess, a cat of 9 lives, and I don't know how many he's used up. He is absolutely sound. He had a few abrasions on him. They have completely disappeared.
How soon are you going to try that trailer?
I could not be more impressed with the rescue people from the LA City Fire Department. They must come upon situations, each one different than the next one. I don't know how many horses they've rescued, but I probably can count them on my hands. And they knew exactly what to do.
And more than 3 hours after nearly falling to his death, the proud animal was once again able to head home on his own horsepower. Our next story is about a dog whose owners thought she had run away. Actually, the curious Cocker Spaniel was trapped underground for more than 8 days. In fact, her owners had given up on ever finding the dog named Allie again. And then, suddenly a neighbor heard the faint sound of a barking dog coming from somewhere underground. Soon, the entire community realized that the poor pooch had become trapped in a long-forgotten irrigation system that snaked beneath a large empty field.
Allie.
Even as members of the local Elk Grove County Fire Department moved to save the animal, Allie's panicked whelping tormented her rescuers.
Dog's in there. Steve? 2 yards next door.
Pinpointing the missing dog within hundreds of yards of underground pipe was a difficult task. Every helpless bark pulled at their hearts.
I think so. Allie? No, I can't see her just yet.
With night approaching, the rescue team identified what they believed was the most likely spot to find Allie. A backhoe was brought in. More digging began. There was tension in the air. A miscalculation would prove disastrous. Digging too deeply could even accidentally harm the dog herself. Precious hours were slipping away. When they reached the pipe, a hole was quickly cut into it. And though no one could see her, the sound of Allie's anxious barking gave the team hope. Every effort was made to coax Allie into the open.
Allie, come here.
Until finally, after 8 days underground,
Come on, Allie. Come on, yeah!
the scared and hungry Cocker Spaniel was safe and sound, and on her way to a badly needed home-cooked meal.
There's one over here on Elk Grove.
All thanks to the tireless efforts of some very heroic rescuers. Most people might think that New York City police have seen it all. But high above the streets of Harlem was a dog in distress and a rescue that they had never attempted before. Harlem, New York. It was a cool, pleasant October afternoon, yet a careless Rottweiler named Girl was trapped between 2 brick tenements 4 stories off the ground. The frightened cries and yelps for help from the dog soon drew the attention of curious onlookers and a police rescue team. More than 100 spectators held their breath as New York's finest prepared their ropes for a treacherous animal rescue. ESU officers Regina McGee and Joe Acasio lowered themselves by rope from the roof within a whisker of the pup.
Normally, if you get a dog caught between 2 buildings, it's not 5 flights up. So I was just amazed to see this dog's head just sticking out 5 flights above the street. It was really incredible. It was like a bizarro world.
Girl struggled to get free, only wedged her in tighter.
We knew he was in peril. Being stuck between the buildings like that, we didn't know how badly he was injured or how much further he would slide down between the 2 buildings.
The rescuers hung precariously from life-rated rescue ropes while trying to perform a difficult maneuver. To keep the agitated dog from biting her rescuers and becoming more frightened, Girl was harnessed and given a mild sedative.
The officers on the roof tried to pull her up while I was underneath pushing her. And at this point, she was wedged in there so tightly that something other than strength had to be used.
By this time, the dog had been trapped for nearly an hour. Due to the precarious height, they couldn't break through the walls, and none of their regular tools were suitable for a situation like this. Finally, they cooked up an ingenious plan.
One of the local precinct cops went to a grocery store a block or two away, and out of his own money, he bought some cooking oil.
While Regina poured the oil on the dog, Officer Ocasio managed to work her loose, and she came right up and out into their arms. But the rescue was far from over. Although Girl was tightly harnessed in her rescue rig, she was still slippery from the oil. Careful not to let her slip from their grasp and plummet 4 stories to her death, the police slowly eased her onto the fire escape. After 90 harrowing minutes, the exhausted animal was finally brought downstairs. Though her black and brown hair was matted with oil, Girl was found to be suffering only minor scrapes and bruises.
It was just a great feeling that we were able to help this animal, and everything worked out well, and all the people on the street were cheering us, and it was really gratifying.
A heroic effort executed by New York's finest.
Coming up, 2 dogs take a deadly spill on the California coast. A terrified canine eludes his rescuer, then fights for his life in a frozen river. What would you do if you had to wrestle a kangaroo to safety? And a frightened horse struggles to keep from drowning in a rushing river. All this and more when we return with the world's most incredible animal rescues.
When a Texas expressway is accidentally turned into a modern-day cattle trail, posses on horses are called in for a truly incredible rescue. In the pre-dawn darkness, cows could be seen running in all directions on a Dallas freeway. The cattle had escaped when the truck they were in suddenly overturned on a freeway underpass. The Dallas County Sheriff's Posse was called in to round up about 85 head of cattle. It was the Old West with a dangerous new twist. A collision with a motorist would likely be fatal for human and animal alike.
They've been in an accident and they're all, just scared. They'll just run. That's just part of it, so they'll run till they get tired.
We got to the scene. There was a semi-truck that had overturned in the center of the median. Laying on the side, the top of it had busted out. About, I think, 20 of the cattle had escaped from the truck.
By daybreak, posses on horseback were brought in to try to round up the loose cows. This massive rescue operation was mounted during morning rush hour. Several lanes of freeway had to be shut down. Officers brought in helicopters to help the posses find the cattle from the air. But when they were found, the cows weren't especially cooperative. Some wouldn't budge, others ran in a panic. At times, it took 5 men to rescue just 1 cow.
He's like we are, wiped out.
Are they always this stubborn?
Yeah. When they've been disturbed, yes, they are.
The escaped cows were ultimately all rounded up. The freeway was reopened, and Shelby Vest and his posse left knowing they had bragging rights to the great Dallas Freeway Roundup. No matter the size of the animal, nor the obstacles that must be overcome, saving the life of a helpless creature always seems to unite even total strangers. On the outskirts of Buffalo, New York, a passing motorist reported a small black dog stranded on an ice floe in the Niagara River ship channel. When police diver Bill Yates arrived on the scene, the animal appeared cold and frightened. It was standing on an unstable sheet of ice 50 yards from shore in 32 feet of frigid water.
The dog, you could see he was hunched over and he was shivering. He looked like he was close to a hypothermia.
So Yates pulled on a specially designed dry suit over his street clothes and crawled out onto the precarious ice floes.
I had plenty of emotion for the animal. I just felt that someone had to do something to save the dog.
You scared him.
He didn't seem to be that afraid at the time until I got closer. He was starting to look into the water, starting to look around for another escape route. It was as if he didn't want to be rescued. Then when I did get the rope around him, he turned and barked and nipped at me. So from there, the dog had jumped onto another ice float. As the dog had jumped off of one ice floe and into the water, he started going under. So I followed him, and when we got to a bigger ice floe, he tried to get up on it. So I grabbed him underneath the hind end and pushed him up onto the ice floe. The dog kind of looked over his shoulder at me and said, well, here's somebody here to help me.
This was the turning point. The dog seemed to trust Yates after that. He apparently realized that he wasn't going to be hurt and allowed himself to be rescued.
When they started to pull him to shore, the rope tightened around his neck, but it was high on his neck, and it didn't seem to be bothering him. The rope had gotten up away from his esophagus, and it appeared that he wasn't in any danger of choking. I believe that that's better than the fate he was going through at the time.
It's an accepted practice by animal rescuers to use a snare or noose, and when done correctly, it doesn't harm the animals.
Well, I felt a lot of relief for the dog at the time because now I knew he was out of danger. We got somebody's pet, and we saved him.
We've seen several extraordinary stories of humans rescuing animals, but it's even more extraordinary when the reverse happens, as you'll see in this next piece about a newborn baby who owes his life to 3 dogs. A warm spring day in the San Gabriel Mountains near Los Angeles. Azita Melanian was taking her usual evening jog with her 3 black Labrador retrievers, Ty, Tangles, and Boo Boo. The dogs normally remained close to Azita as they ran, but suddenly something caught their attention and they bolted toward the bushes.
And I turned around to see where my dogs are. They were gathering around in a bunch of bushes. I thought, oh my God, they found another animal. They're gonna chew it up. So I called them. Come on!
But the dogs ignored her call. She feared there may be something dangerous lurking, so she went to investigate.
They looked so puzzled. I never seen their face so confused. Usually when they find an animal, they are all excited, but this time they were just standing there and sniffing the spot, and they look at me like, what is there?
It's not unusual for dogs to sense something that we would just walk right past. All their senses are more acute than ours, and they perceive things differently than humans do.
Azita returned and saw something strange pushing out from beneath the earth.
Oh my God!
She put the dogs in her car and returned to have another look.
Oh my God, he's a baby!
The dogs had found a live infant boy tightly wrapped in a blue towel and buried in a shallow grave.
And I cleaning his nose and his mouth because he couldn't breathe.
The baby was no more than 3 hours old and was barely clinging to life. It would be a race to save him.
I ran to my car and grabbed my cellular phone and I called 911.
But she was unable to call out from her cell phone, so she flagged down a motorist.
Yeah, what's going on?
Who in turn alerted the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department.
As I go back, I don't hear anything. My heart stopped. I thought for sure he died. Shaking, and he starts crying again.
The baby grabbed her wrist and wouldn't let go. Paramedics arrived and took the infant to a nearby hospital. He was in critical condition, but remarkably, doctors were able to save the baby's life. The hospital staff nicknamed him Baby Christian, and adoption offers poured in from all over the country.
I'm sure that they knew that Baby Christian was there. I'm sure they knew that was a human. And I'm sure that they knew when they smelled a human scent in the ground that this was not a normal situation.
And this tenacious little boy has 3 black Labradors and their owner to thank for his incredible and timely rescue.
I believe without my dogs, I could never find this child. My dogs are the real hero here because they felt and they sensed something that I could have never felt and sensed.
And Baby Christian's precious gift of life was returned to him thanks to the natural instincts of Ty, Tangles, and Boo Boo, 3 truly heroic dogs.
Up next, a horse battles enormous odds just to stay alive. A kangaroo trapped in mud is hopping mad. And the lives of 2 dogs hang in the balance, 180 feet up a steep cliff. When we return with more of the world's most incredible animal rescues.
This next story features some footage that you simply will not believe. In Queensland, Australia, a wild kangaroo had apparently stumbled into a mud pit during the night. As he thrashed about in the muck, his struggles to free himself only served to dig him deeper into the mire.
This animal could have easily died in a short period of time, and the chances of it surviving are not really good, because the more it struggles, the more its system is becoming stressed.
A young boy, Peter Eversham, alerted police officer Jim Monkton to the kangaroo's plight.
And we just responded to a call from Peter's mother here about a kangaroo stuck in the mud, and it seemed to have been in distress when we came, so we thought if we could get him out nice and quick, had a good chance of survival.
The boy pulled the kangaroo, and the policeman pulled the boy. Eventually, they managed to drag the kangaroo to freedom. But instead of swimming towards land, the confused marsupial headed directly for a dredger boat, where he again became trapped. The persistent rescuers then swam after him, freed him from the dredger, threw him back in the water, and finally dragged him to shore. But the ungrateful kangaroo then turned on his rescuer.
Here you have an animal that's disoriented. It has no idea what's going on. It's probably never come into contact with people before. As a result, immediately it turns around and goes after the individual that was trying to help it.
Officer Monkton was now in danger of being seriously injured by the kangaroo's powerful hind legs.
The kangaroo didn't realize what was going on. They are not capable of saying, "Hey, thanks, I really appreciate you getting me out of the mud."
Then, in an unusual twist of fate, the hapless roo jumped promptly back into the water and had to be rescued for the 3rd time. Officer Monkton finally caught up to him and dragged him out of the water by his tail. This time far away from the water.
I think he wanted to get over the side for the green grass. He didn't appreciate being sent back on the dirt. I hope he finds his way around and we don't have to go back in again.
And finally, without so much as a thank you, the exhausted kangaroo then hopped off to freedom in the Australian bush. What happens when 2 dogs accidentally find themselves trapped on the side of a steep mountain will take your breath away. Now let me warn you, this is pretty tough to watch. All eyes were turned upward as onlookers discovered 2 dogs trapped 150 feet above the California coastline on a steep and rocky cliff.
When we arrived, we had a couple of plans. The best plan that we came up with was having 2 men rappel down the side of the cliff and make a capture on both animals.
Firefighters rushed to deploy their rescue gear, while the confused dogs clung to the side of the hill, anxiously searching for a way to safety.
We didn't know what type of posture these animals would be in, and we thought they might go to the primal instinct and be real aggressive once we made a capture.
Fearing that the worst might happen, the firefighters harnessed themselves to their equipment, ready to drop over the cliff to attempt a treacherous rescue.
I'm ready, George.
Okay, very good.
Suddenly, everyone's worst fear was realized as one of the dogs lost his footing and tumbled nearly 100 feet down the rocky precipice. It was a horrifying sight. But miraculously, despite the height and velocity of the fall, the dog clearly had survived. The fallen dog's companion soon found a way down, and together both were in danger of still another deadly fall. Yet rather than wait for any further help, they found themselves a trail and successfully managed to save themselves.
Anytime, whether it be a human being or an animal, that we don't have to make the rescue and everybody is safe, that's fine with us. We're real happy about that.
Still ahead, rescuers battle a raging river to save the life of a drowning horse. when we come back with the world's most incredible animal rescues.
When you combine a 900-pound horse with a mudslide and a raging river, you wind up with a potentially dangerous recipe for disaster. It was a cold February morning in Walnut Creek, California. Head wrangler Dave Summers was delivering feed to some of the 45 horses belonging to a trail ride company when he noticed Kachina, a 15-year-old Appaloosa, had fallen in a landslide above the swift waters of Little Pine Creek.
I started up the tractor to feed this morning, and they all came running, and she got a little low on the path and got in the wet mud and slipped. She laid up there for about 5 minutes, and then by the time I got from our barn around to here, she tumbled on down the hill.
Kachina dangerously tumbled nearly 60 feet down the hill and had wedged herself in the mud underneath a fallen oak tree just above the rain-swollen waters of the creek.
We were very concerned that she was going to be hurt, stuck in the tree the way she was, and number two, we both agreed that there was no way that we could get her out of there with just the two of us.
Soon, Dave was joined by 18 members of Contra Costa County's newly formed Swiftwater Rescue Team. As they fought the quick waters of the river, rescuers had to secure the tree to keep it from falling down and injuring both themselves and the horse.
The basic plan was just to get as much mud and whatever away from the horse from his legs, cutting away the branches so we could see where his feet were.
Because they were cutting so close to Kachina's head, rescuers used a pneumatic cutter instead of a chainsaw.
Eventually it got to a point where the horse got so weak that it's pretty much now. We had to get him out now or else he was going to fall down, drown, or be injured.
They fired up the chainsaw right next to her rear quarters, and all she did was turn her head and look at them as if to say, "What took you so long?" By that time, she had been laying under the tree for almost 3 hours. And finally, when they cut the last branch away, was when all hell broke loose.
He pretty much flipped over into the water. His head went under because his back legs were stuck. We had to pull, pry, and yank on him until we were able to free the rear legs, and then we were able to get him out.
She went down on her knees, tumbled over, and started tumbling down the creek, which was moving at about 25 miles an hour, with 4 firemen and my wrangler Dave hanging on to her for dear life, both hers and theirs, trying to keep her head above water so she didn't drown. She's 900 pounds and she's struggling. We couldn't pull her out. She was just so weak that she just wanted to lay there and catch her breath.
Exhausted, frightened, but very much alive, Kachina lay nearly motionless on the riverbank while her rescuers warmed her with blankets.
I knew she was going to be okay once we got her out. Just had to take a little bit of time, take it slow, and get the tree away from her, and she was going to be okay.
It was challenging, to say the least. It's not the kind of thing you can specifically train for. Our job involves risk, so it goes with the territory. Everybody worked together and did a hell of a job. Thank God it worked out.
Once again, to all those people around the world who selflessly risk their time and in many cases their lives to save animals, we dedicate this program. As we continue to see, the bond that ties all creatures, great and small, is never more tested than when a life is in danger. Saving the lives of others brings out the very best in us all. I'm James Brown, and thanks for watching.
If you have footage you would like to send to our show, send it to the world's most incredible animal rescues, care of Heroic Animals, Box 429, 11271 Ventura Boulevard, Studio City, California, 91604.